Audi's understated Q5 continues its subtle conquest of the premium compact SUV sector. This improved first-generation model gets a range of more efficient engines and even more car-like driving dynamics that are great on tarmac and are even pretty effective for light off-road use. There's loads of advanced technology and a beautifully practical interior crafted in Audi's own inimitable style. In short, if you can afford it, you'd like one. Audi dominates the premium part of the compact SUV segment. Has done ever since this car, the Q5, was first introduced back in 2008. But back then it didn't really have much to beat, with only BMW's aging first generation X3, Volvo's quirky XC60 and Land Rover's more utilitarian Freelander, offering alternatives to buyers wanting the luxury and road manners of a compact executive estate, together with the high-set driving position of a proper SUV. But much has changed since then, most notably with the launch of two direct rivals seriously threatening Audi's bottom line in this market segment: BMW's second generation X3 and the avant-garde Range Rover Evoque. Hence the need for this Q5 to up its game with a far-reaching package of enhancements that were introduced into the UK in the autumn of 2012. The result is the car we're going to look at here. It might not appear to be much different, but take it from me, almost everything that could have been improved on this car has been. Look a little closer and the styling has been tweaked a bit, but what really matters is the redesigned engine range, offering extra power and lower running costs, the extra high-tech equipment, and, if you can afford it, the frantically fast flagship SQ5 model. Audi, you see, doesn't do things by halves. Some things haven't changed though. As before, this is the kind of compact SUV you buy if, rather unreasonably, you want something with mastery of the mud as well as the motorway. Something that'll look great on the driveway, keep you mobile during a snowy snap, and shrink around you when a twisting road opens up ahead. It's a demanding brief that over 400,000 global owners satisfied with the original version of this car. But is this revised version good enough to take on tougher rivals that promise much the same thing? That's what we're going to find out. At launch, this Q5 set a new benchmark for sporty handling in compact SUVs. If you had to criticise, you might have said that the steering was a little light and the ride a bit firm, but that was about it. Otherwise, here was a car of this kind you could buy without the usual clunky dynamic downsides. Audi's clear class leadership in this, though, has been slightly eroded since this model's original launch. BMW's second generation X3 and, more notably, the Range Rover Evoque, both showing just how good a car of this kind could really be on tarmac while maintaining a modicum of off-road ability. Audi, though, has responded in kind. Suspension tweaks have softened the ride, and a new electromechanical power steering system offers more feel around the bends. Better still, there's a completely new engine range beneath the bonnet, all units employing direct injection turbocharging, plus stop-start for frugal emissions. That means that they can all accomplish the clever trick of offering more power with lower running costs, and no engine demonstrates that better than the one I'm driving here, the petrol 2-litre TFSI. Now, don't confuse this power plant with the one of the same name that was offered in the original version of this car. It's very different. For a start, it's got more power, 225 PS, good enough to get you from rest to 62 miles an hour in just 7.1 seconds, on the way to a top speed of 138 miles an hour. But what's more important is that the grunt that undergirds all of that acceleration, the 350 Newton meters of it, is developed from much further down in the rev range, from just 1500 RPM. So much so that you've really got to have a need for speed to want to plump for the pokier petrol variant in this lineup. Also new, a 272 PS 3-litre TFSI supercharged unit that's good enough for rest to 60 in just 5.9 seconds on the way to a top speed of 145 miles an hour. This 3 litre though must be ordered with the 8-speed Tiptronic automatic transmission that's optional on this 2 litre TFSI variant. The majority of Q5 buyers though will give these petrol choices no more than a cursory glance on their way to sign up for one of the diesels. In most cases that'll mean a preference for the 2 litre TDI, now uprated and pokier with 177 PS on tap, good enough to get you from rest to 62 miles an hour in 9 seconds dead on the way to a top speed of 127 miles an hour. There's the option on this model of a high-tech 7-speed dual-clutch S-tronic auto transmission. And that's the only option if you go for the 3 litre TDI, the 245 PS unit that is considerably quicker. It gets you from rest to 62 miles an hour in just 6.5 seconds on the way to a top speed of 140 miles an hour. Now this is the variant that's the final stepping stone to the Q5 flagship model, the SQ5, that uses a bi-TDI, bi-turbo diesel engine that really is very quick indeed. It gets to 62 miles an hour from rest in just 5.9 seconds and has to be artificially restrained at 155 miles an hour. It's got 313 PS on tap. Whichever Q5 you choose, it'll come with Quattro 4-wheel drive. That's something worth pointing out, all-wheel drive no longer being a given on compact SUVs of this kind. As you'd expect from such a performance-minded model, it's very much a tarmac-orientated setup, with the centre differential pushing 60% of the grunt rearwards, but able to redistribute front or rear as necessary, as for example you might need when sharp cornering, where torque vectoring brakes aid tighter turn-in. The other situation that'll see the Quattro system earn its keep, of course, is when you venture onto an unpaved surface, statistically a rare occurrence for SUV owners. Audi reckons that only around 2% of them have ever driven on what it calls rough country. Should they try and do so in one of these, they might find themselves actually a little surprised by what it can do, provided, of course, they stick to the gravel tracks, sand and light off-piste use for which it was designed. There are no knobs or levers, of course, nothing as crude as that. The car itself will sense when you're off tarmac, automatically adapting its electronic stability control system into an off-road mode, which can tweak itself according to the surface that you're on, and even incorporate a hill descent control system to ease you gently down really steep slopes. The ESP can even adjust itself to accommodate a roof rack. Find yourself somewhere that you probably shouldn't have ventured with your shiny new Q5, and a surprisingly impressive set of off-road stats suggests that you might make it back to civilization. A torquey set of engines that facilitate a class-leading 2,400 kilogram braked towing capacity can get you through some pretty rough stuff. Somewhere that you'll appreciate useful approach and departure angles of 25 degrees, a ramp angle of 18 degrees, a total wading depth of 500 millimeters, and a reasonable 200 millimeters of ground clearance. But why am I telling you this when, if you were to buy this car, you'd be so unlikely to ever put those figures to the test? Of more interest will be the way the car responds when your favourite country lane opens up, you're running late, and there's no one in the car but you. That's the kind of scenario that would reward specification of what really is a must-have extra cost feature on this model, the Audi Drive Select system. This setup enables you to alter the throttle response, the amount of power steering assistance, it tweaks the air conditioning, and even enables you to alter the gear shift points of the auto gearbox if you specified that, via a whole range of different settings. Now you'll play with the comfort and dynamic modes probably for the first few days that you own this car. You may even tweak the individual elements of Drive Select via the individual setting that's offered to people who specify the Audi navigation system. But once you've started to live with the car a bit, you'll probably do what I've done over the last few days and just leave the Drive Select in auto to do its own thing, or perhaps leave it in the eco-minded efficiency setting. Now this system really comes into its own if you have the budget to add some of Audi's choicest electronic driving aids to your Q5, for it also works in concert with things like the adaptive damping system that enables you to alter the suspension stiffness, the dynamic steering and the adaptive cruise control. Now, Audi doesn't like to radically alter the appearance of its cars when it chooses to update them, and it hasn't here. So the coupe-like roofline and the wraparound rear tailgate remain in a shape that, as before, is 210mm taller than the kind of Audi A4 that's about the same width and the same length, but even in its heaviest Quattro form would be about 135 kilograms lighter. The whole thing's been enhanced though by a subtle package of updates. So there are revised headlamps that feature xenon lighting on most models, that are framed by LED daytime running lights and that flank a high gloss black single framed front grille with beveled upper edges. The bumpers are modified too, with high gloss black inserts and chrome rings around the fog lights. But for me, perhaps the most important touch is that roof rails and crossbars are now standard, so there's no messing about with aftermarket kits or adapter plates if you want to quickly fit a roof box. Inside, the tweaks are equally low-key, though owners of the original version of this model will notice the splashes of chrome and high-gloss black trim, the neater control stalks, the clearer instruments and the simpler-to-use MMI infotainment system. Otherwise, it's as you were, which means that you can expect a very classy cabin indeed, though one that some may feel could have been distanced a bit further from that of an ordinary Audi A4. Even the driving position doesn't feel that different, slightly lower set than you'll find in less dynamically orientated cars of this kind. In the back, thanks to the long 2.81 metre wheelbase, the reclinable rear seat offers comfortable space for 2 adults or 3 at a push. People who'll thank you for specifying the rear bench seat plus option that enables the seat to go backwards and forwards to prioritise either rear passenger legroom or rear luggage space. And talking of luggage space, the 540 litre low bay, though no longer the largest in the class, is not far off it, and has a useful underfloor compartment together with a selection of hooks, fastenings and power sockets, flexibility you can add to by specifying Audi's neat rail-mounted load security system. There's the option of a through-load ski hatch for longer items, but if you really need more space than that, then using these helpful levers to push forward these split folding rear seats frees up a total of 1,560 litres of fresh air. In fact, there's more than that if you specify the fold flat front passenger seat, enabling items as long as a surfboard to be carried if necessary. Most Q5s will be sold in the £33,000 to £43,000 bracket that's typical for prestige badged compact SUVs of this kind. You'll pay a premium of around £4,000 to graduate into this class on top of the money that you pay for more mainstream compact SUVs like Toyota's RAV4 or Honda's CR-V. As for Q5 pricing, well, it's been pitched to be more or less identical to the car that this Audi outsells by 50% in the UK, BMW's X3. Most customers for this Q5 choose the volume 2-litre TDI 177 PS diesel model, for which you'll need the same kind of £32,000 to £33,000 budget as would be required for comparable rivals, like BMW's X3 xDrive 20D, the Range Rover Evoque SD4 or the Volvo XC60 D4 AWD. Where this Q5 is more unique though is in the way that it serves the needs of petrol buyers in this segment, with Audi's excellent 2-litre and 3-litre TFSI engines. Rivals have more of a diesel focus. At the top of the range, the SQ5 model is pitched directly against BMW's X3 xDrive 35D, a car with exactly the same 313 PS output, but slightly less performance, allied to slightly lower pricing. And equipment, well, whichever Q5 you choose, 2-litre or 3-litre TFSI petrol, 2 litre or 3 litre TDI diesel or 3 litre bi-TDI diesel, you should find your Q5 to be pretty well equipped, especially now that SE is the base trim level, which means that all models get niceties like alloy wheels, auto headlamps and wipers, parking sensors, leather trim for the seats, 3-zone climate control and Bluetooth compatibility for your mobile phone. As usual, there's the option of sportier S-Line variants recognisable by their xenon headlamps. And options? Well, I'd want the rear bench seat plus setup that enables the rear seat to slide backwards and forwards and includes a ski hatch for longer items. Equally essential is the Drive Select system that enables you to tweak the settings for the throttle, the steering and the auto gear shift response whilst on the move. If you had the budget, it would be nice to build the adaptive damping system into that as well. Equally tempting are things like a thermal cup holder, a huge glass panoramic roof and a 14-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system. Plus there's plenty of high-tech stuff too. The mobile phone preparation high with online services option enables you to transform your Q5 into an WLAN, that's wireless local area network hotspot, so that passengers can surf the internet and email via their mobile phones. It also brings customized online services into the car, such as Google Point of Interest search by voice control, navigation by Google Images and Google Street View. Another useful feature is Audi Traffic Information Online that briefs you about traffic movements along your route. Plus, there's the really neat smartphone Audi Music Stream app, via which you can access more than 5,000 internet radio stations from the car. As for safety, well, there's all the usual airbags, twin front, side and curtain, as well as the expected range of electronic driving aids to make sure that hopefully you'll never have to use them, with the ABS and the ESP stability control systems featuring automatic off-road adaptability. There's hill descent control to help you slither carefully down steep slopes, and the ESP is even clever enough to detect whether or not you've got a roof box fitted and adapt itself accordingly. I also like the way that the electromechanical power steering comes to your aid with gentle steering prompts when braking on split friction surfaces. Also standard is a rest recommendation feature that monitors your driving reactions for drowsiness before prompting you, if necessary, to stop for a restorative coffee. Safety options include Audi Side Assist to stop you dangerously pulling out to overtake in front of another driver, and Audi Active Lane Assist to stop dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway. Now, you used to buy an SUV, any SUV, expecting to have to shoulder substantially higher running costs than would be the case with a conventional saloon or estate. But that's certainly not the case with this Q5, especially in improved form where the standard inclusion of start-stop on all the engines to cut them when you don't need them stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights really does make a big difference to the efficiency figures. Also helping is the electromechanical steering system that aids frugality because it's not taking any power when you're in the straight ahead position, and it will also help if you specified the Drive Select system because it's got a dedicated eco-minded efficiency setting. As a result of all this cleverness, Audi is back on terms with its BMW X3 rival in this segment and can boast efficiency gains across the range that amount to around 15% in terms of an improvement in fuel consumption and around 11% in terms of an improvement in CO2 emissions. Better if I put that into some kind of perspective for you though. When this Q5 was first launched, the 2-litre TDI diesel engine that most customers chose put out 170 PS and managed 42.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle. These days, in this improved model, it puts out 177 PS and manages 47.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle. I think that's called having your cake and eating it. Even the gutsy 3-litre TDI V6 manages 44.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle, which is quite remarkable for a car with 245 PS on tap. Think about that for a moment. That's 25 PS more than an old school performance icon like a Ford Escort Cosworth. Yet you're talking about a fuel consumption figure that's better than a 1.1 litre little Fiesta from that era. Not far off that is the fearsome 313 PS SQ5 bi-turbo TDI model that, despite being able to get from rest to 62 miles an hour in under 5 seconds, is able to return 41.5 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle. Petrol technology has progressed a good way too. The 2-litre TFSI unit fitted to the car I'm driving here develops 25% more power in this improved form, yet its combined cycle fuel economy has improved from 33.1 miles to the gallon to 37.7 miles to the gallon. If you go for the 272 PS 3-litre TFSI petrol Q5, you're looking at 33.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle. As for CO2 returns, well, predictably best of the bunch is the 2-litre TDI turbo diesel that manages 154 grams per kilometre of CO2. Next up is the 3-litre TDI managing 169 grams per kilometre, and then the SQ5 by TDI that manages 179 grams per kilometre. Petrol people can expect 174 grams per kilometre of CO2 from the 2-litre TFSI that I'm using here, and 199 grams per kilometre if you go for the 3-litre TFSI. Whether your destination is Sainsbury's or the annual family skiing trip to Crans-Montana, you'll feel better about doing it in an Audi Q5. In between, in contrast to larger, plusher and thirstier 4x4s, you won't get that nagging feeling of using a sledgehammer to crack a nut when it comes to meeting your real motoring needs. Nor when you're alone on a twisting B-road should you feel the need to wish you'd bought something sportier. Of course, this car faces much tougher competition these days, but the well-considered package of changes made to this smarter, more efficient and higher-tech improved version should keep it ahead of the chasing pack. Of course, it's not cheap, but then very little in this sector is, and at least you'll get a decent part of your money back when it comes to resale time. True, you don't get the showiness of a Range Rover Evoque or the ultimate handling feedback of a BMW X3, but many will feel that this Audi is a perfect balance between these two extremes. Resolutely high-tech and resolutely real-world, this Q5 remains resolutely right.